Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Clarke. I'm your host of Kemetic Fortitude, and today I have my special guest, Mr. John Ashford. Good to see you, John. Me and his brother go back about dang near 30 years now.
Yeah,
wow. Yeah. Met. We both worked with the kids. He was, still is, a probation officer.
From Multnomah County, yes.
And I used to work in an alternative school. But today we want to focus on the benefits of organic food and why it's important for us as a people to start shifting the paradigm and rethinking the way we fuel our bodies. So John, I understand that you eat like, you said 80% of your food is organic.
Yes. I mean, pretty much 80. I try to do as much as possible. I'm a meat eater, so occasionally I buy either organic meat or high quality meats where I'm looking at how many hormones they put in the meat. Mm-hmm. But the reason organic is that for some time now, my doctor friend Bernie Baird told me that most people understand that food is medicine.
Okay.
And if they start paying attention to their body, they can start using food as a remedy to any illness that shows up in the body. And you don't have to wait till the illness show up. You can just start being proactive. For example, I've increased my vegetable intake because vegetables are alkaline, and everything else is pretty much acid.
Okay.
And the best for me, one of the things I found out is that my memory sometimes was having problems, and I was having body problems. And so he gave me this strip. He asked me every time I urinated to check my pH level. And what I found out is that I was highly acidic. And so what I found out also is that the number one way of remedying acidity is using alkaline minerals, which is not only vegetables. So I had to increase my vegetables, and so when I started increasing my vegetables, I want the vegetable to taste like something. And a lot of times, many times, organic vegetables and fruits taste a lot better to me. And I remember years ago, I was telling you earlier, a friend of mine, Laura Burgess, took me to the store, a local store, and so we sell organic fruits and vegetables, and I didn't believe it. I thought it was a bunch of hype. I ain't gonna lie to you. So I went in there, and so we went in there, and so she said, well, can we try this apple? So we sliced the apple, we ate the apple, and I was like, man, it reminded me when I was a little kid. This organic food was like, man, what is this? So we went over to the local store, a larger distributor, and first we asked if we taste the apple. It's like, fool, you can't taste this food. You got to buy that if you want it. So we took it, and we took it back to the office, and she bought a couple apples from the organic store, and we ate them, and it was totally different. Then I realized the chemicals they use on some of the fruits and vegetables actually can start creating cancer. Now, most people don't want to look at that, but I do understand why farmers have to use it, so I'm not going to beat farmers up. When you start growing things organically, there is a cost, and then there's the factor of nature that can eat you up.
Right. Because
if you have a bug that comes in and you're not using the chemicals to kill it, it's going to devour your crop. So I think that we still have to get somewhere where we start to figure out how to create more organic vegetables and fruits and meats for everybody. But I think it's possible. I think that if you ask questions, you can find a way of doing that. But for us, one of the things for us that I think we need to start doing is we sit in my backyard now, and one of the reasons I moved to Camas was multiple reasons I moved to Camas. But once I saw that I had a half an acre to live on, I was like, well, you know, I'm not going to grow all this grass. I was like, the majority of my plants on my property are going to be edible. And I was going to New Seasons, a local store here in Portland, and I'll buy 2 bunches of organic kale for $5. If I bought $5 organic seeds, I can, because of the nature of where we live in the Northwest, I can plant my crop in April and basically have vegetables all year round because the winter is very mild here.
Right.
And I can control what chemicals I'm using if I use any chemicals. And I know farmers can't do that at that extent. What I do is I can use soap water and use it to keep aphids away.
Right.
There's a lot of small things that you can do, but the most important piece is that there's no chemicals in my fruits and vegetables. So like my asparagus down below, I was catching myself I was picking, getting the weeds out. I just grab some of the asparagus. I'm eating it because it's so sweet, and I don't have no chemicals on it.
And see, most of us can't fathom asparagus being a vegetable that would have any type of sweet taste to it if we remember what it tastes like as kids, you know.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. I always hear people say, well, you know, organic food costs too much. I know there's the reasons why, because, you know, you talked about the farmers losing, but wouldn't you say it was worth it to spend a little bit of extra money as opposed to the extra money that we'll be spending in health costs?
Oh my God, it's no comparison. A friend of mine, Brother Rashid, and I were talking about this a while back. What we don't understand is one visit to a hospital, an emergency room, if you don't have insurance, will break you. If you add up going to, and maybe you have to do a trade-off. I get that, and that was been my argument for people. I was talking to a friend of mine. I was like, well, man, it's easy for me and you because we're privileged. We have money, we have work, we have jobs that can afford it. And he says, yes, we are privileged, but it's all about choice. He says, you might have to change the way you eat. And once you start getting more knowledge about that, you start figuring out how do you start to accommodate your desire for what you want to eat by asking questions about what can I do differently, or where can I shop, and or can I grow it.
Right.
But that means that you're gonna have to change. You're gonna have to change your whole mindset, become more conscious on how you're gonna prepare a meal daily.
Right.
And where you're gonna go shop, and then you might have to do some research and find out, well, where can I find this at a more reasonable price. One of the things I'm finding right now, for most people who might see this, you know, if you're a member of Costco, Costco is dropping the price of organics.
Oh, that's nice.
Because so many people are beginning to buy it. And I remember when they first had it, they had like one small roll of organics. Now, I showed you this nut butter they have, like organic nut, but they're beginning to accommodate because the people begin to desire more. More people buy it, the cost can change. And a lot of times the chocolate cost can go down.
Right.
But the biggest piece for me is how do I get this to the masses? Because one of the things I started observing is I think that food is so important that it either can make you or break you. What I mean by that, we don't see food as medicine. Once you see food as medicine, you start cherishing it a little bit more. And that means daily, you're going to start paying attention to what you put in your body. We're outside, guys. So,
Nature.
Yeah. So, and most people don't pay, like I said, most people don't pay attention to that.
Right. Well, personally, as many of you know, I have a very rare autoimmune disease, and I have my good times and my bad times. But I know one of the reasons I'm still here 17 years later because I really took a look at the fuel I was putting in my body. And like he said, use food as medicine. So I started doing my research, started making the shift to more organic. Yeah, it costs more to eat organic, but you can think wisely. Like he said, you can grow your vegetables. If you go to the different stores and look around, because I go to like a New Seasons, which is here in the Northwest. I go to a Whole Foods, I think, which is nationwide. Whole Foods tends to be a lot more expensive, but every once in a while,
whole paycheck.
Yeah, whole paycheck, right? But you just got to know what items are on sale, and you kind of do your research. And
Trader Joe's is actually pretty good.
Yeah, Trader Joe's
actually has a lot of good organic stuff.
Trader Joe's, I know they're on the West Coast, so they have those back east.
Yes, there. I've seen them in the Midwest. At least I know they're in the Midwest. I've seen them in Chicago before.
Yeah, great value in Trader Joe's on a lot of stuff. But as far as the meats go, I mean, most of us, here in America, we're privileged.
Yes.
I mean, we look at what we're supposed to eat, like a 3-ounce serving of meat. It's no bigger than the palm of our hand, but we want to eat a steak that's like this big.
Yes.
Okay? That's putting us in the gray.
Yes.
And so if I want to buy organic meat, I tell myself, I don't need an 8-ounce piece of steak. I can get by on 3 ounces. I can get the rest of my protein from like beans and hemp powders and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I mean, and that's what I'm talking about, changing the way you look at things. Like, for example, I used to be that person who wanted, so I'll buy a roast that I like prime rib. Okay, so I'll buy the roast. Okay, and usually when the prime rib is about this thick, if you look, it's about this thick, right? I don't like my steaks that thick. So what happened is I buy the roast and I cut them smaller. So I cut the roast this size, I cut it in half, and I make them thinner. Because I'm going for the 3 ounces of meat.
Right.
But it's organic. It costs a little bit more, but out of that roast, I might get 6 to 7 meals out of that.
Yeah.
And so when you go to cost price, you're actually saving money. Plus, I'm not getting as much. But also, this is the other piece. When you eat better quality food, you don't need as much.
That is true. I've noticed that.
You know, when you eat better quality food, you don't need as much. And I didn't realize that until afterwards. I was like, that can't be true. But it's like, man, I'm eating better quality food and I don't need as much anymore.
Right. So I think one of the major problems is we become such a society of convenience. You know, we got these days both parents working at home, whereas I remember my childhood, my mom didn't start working until I was about 7 years old. But it takes a lot of time to really prepare, but it's so easy to say, okay, I don't feel like cooking tonight, I'll just go pick up something at McDonald's or Taco Bell, but that's suicide, folks.
Yes. I mean, the only thing I ask you is this. There is something on Netflix or Amazon TV you can watch, and it was a show that this one guy, I met the guy here in Portland once. He did a documentary on McDonald's. He ate 30 days, he ate McDonald's food. And he did some research. He took some French fries, and he set them out for 30 days. They didn't break down. They didn't mold. And he actually did the research, and he kept them longer. And a year later, the French fry was just a little bit darker, but didn't change in appearance at all. And so the question I ask is, where's the nutrients in that if it doesn't go back to nature?
Right.
Because everything in nature has an end date of rotting, which is the normal process of fruits and vegetables. So what's happening in the body when you put that in the body? How many nutrients is the body able to extract from that? And what does it taste like? If one of the things that I would say to people is that I don't have to use as much salt on my vegetables because they actually taste like vegetables and I get a better taste. A lot of times salt is placed on things which is less quality to cover up because salt and sugar on the tongue is like the dominant taste. And what happens is that if I want to fool you and give you something that's not as good for you, I'll add a lot of sugar to it or a lot of salt. But the nutritional value is gone. And my piece about it, when we talk about working with young people, my only question is that how much of diet is affecting young people in school? And especially, I'm going to say African American boys, who to me sometimes seem to be marked in this reality in this country, in the U.S. I would say. You know, so my question is like, what would it take for us to not look at pointing the finger at somebody else, but start looking at what do we put in our bodies that might alter some of the choices that we make in society?
So I think, you know, one of the things that we need to do as a community overall, we got to start this outreach. I mean, we got to definitely teach our youth from the start, but I mean, we have to also include the parents in, and you know, get that education there. You know, teach them how to grow these foods, teach them how to shop, teach them how to read the labels. I mean, because you were talking about the sodium. If you take the time to look at labels, a little simple stuff, you will see how much sodium they add to it. And you know, as Africans here in America, a lot of us have issues with high blood pressure, and that's contributing to it.
Yes. And the other piece to it that I used to look at, and I stopped buying this a while back, is that when you look at ingredients on something, the first ingredient is what the most that's in that package. So if you see anything sugar at the beginning, run. If you see a lot of sodium at the beginning, run, because that's primarily what that is. You know, and also you can also start finding things out too that's kind of cool. In Oregon, I don't know if the whole state is doing it, if the whole country is doing this, but GMO things that have been tampered with, certain things that have been tampered with, what does that look like? You know, and you get to choose. I mean, the one thing about the U.S. that I do appreciate is that they still, right now, they still let you make choice in some things that you want to put in your body. You just have to do the research, and sometimes you have to do research a little bit deeper, because I'm going to go off a little bit off of, I know we're talking about organic, but there's also things they put in the food that actually mess, like monosodium glutamate.
Yes.
That, for me, when I have that in my body, I didn't realize it until I stayed away from it and I put it back in my body. I feel like my blood pressure is going up. I feel like I'm having a stroke.
Isn't that the one linked to severe headaches and stuff?
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I think that people can just pay attention to that. Now, I'm not trying to beat any company up that's using it. I'm just saying to people, there's a choice. But you can only make a choice if you ask a question.
And don't be afraid to ask questions. The only stupid question is a question not asked.
Yes, exactly. And so, and go in the store. I mean, and then you have to might do some research. Here's the piece for me. I always want to look at people and see what they look like. You know, I'm in the process right now. About 2 weeks ago, I think I told you this, about 2 weeks, I made a promise to me and my body. I said I'm going to have greater communion with my body. I'm going to exercise daily. I'm going to ask my body, what does it want to eat? Every time. I'm not going to, I used to be this dude who would eat and not ask any questions. Or I would go to somebody's house and eat what they had to offer, not really honoring me. And it's not like I'm trying to be better than anybody, but I have to honor me first.
Right.
And I looked in the mirror one day, and when I got out in the bathroom, and I was like, oh my God, look what you've done with your body. And what I realized is that I wasn't really having a good relationship with my body. I saw my body as something outside, and I was like, I found myself treating other people better than I was treating my body. So I was like, enough of this madness. What would it take for me to start having a relationship with my body where I can ask questions about what do I want to eat? What type of movement do I want to do? You know, how much fun I want to have my body. And then weekly and daily, I always now ask questions about what would it take. I mean, like when I go to the store, I love going shopping because I like the vegetables. I know this is going to sound crazy, you guys. I want them to talk to me. I want to touch it. I want to see what it feels like. I want to start connecting to the energy of what that is I'm about to put in my body.
Right. You know, see, I don't think that's an off-the-wall statement because, you know, this whole, you know, self-awareness and, you know, finding my original spirituality, I realized that that's something that our ancestors did.
Right.
Was talk to each other, because we're all basically composed of the same thing.
Yes.
And so that way is how we end up following divine order.
Yeah. I mean, and for me, in the morning, just getting back to when we talk about organic, like I said, this year I took a break because I'm doing some other things, but they can't see the camera. I have a strawberry patch right next to my house. I have 4 fruit trees. Last year I had 7 vegetable beds. I have artichoke plants. I grow my herbs. I have like 6 tomato plants. I had eggplant, broccoli, green beans. I was growing lettuce, and I was actually, when I go out in the morning to water these plants, there was a connection. And still today, when I go water my trees, my fruit trees, my vines and all, and then other plants, it's a connection of nature every morning. And it's almost like it's a blessing. That's the best way I can tell you. It's a blessing because I get to connect with nature in the morning, and there's something sacred about it, about being in connection to something that's another living piece. I always tease my friends, my vegan friends. It was like, well, they don't eat meat because they don't want to kill an animal. And I was like, not to be rude or anything, if you mess with plants, you find out they're living things too. And I think that in this reality, unfortunately, things change through us having to kill it, unfortunately. But having a communion with it, it's not really killing to me. I know this is my point of view. It's actually an offering. And when you have a connection, sometimes things will give itself to you, and you have a connection to it. If we had more of that with nature, what would it look like with us? And you could start someplace, because you know, I see certain people in this country who do that with animals, dogs. I think it's kind of ironic in our country how people treat dogs better than they treat people.
Exactly.
Okay, and for me that's an interesting point of view. But what would it be like if it was going back and forth, that relationship with your food? What would your body say to you? And what is your body saying to you now with what you're putting in it?
Yeah, well, I'm sure, you know, if everybody tuned into that frequency, then their body would be saying, thank you very much.
Yes. Yes, maybe they'll smile.